They didn't scream. They didn't run. They just watched the barn burn, the names still glowing in the planks, cut deep like someone wanted it to live there forever. June. Not painted, not chalked, etched by a knife. Then the smoke came, the kind that doesn't only close your throat, but squeezes your soul. Nobody moved. Nobody dared speak. In Jericho Creek, you don't drag evil into daylight. You bury it or you set it on fire. But Elias Boone wasn't built like the rest. He stepped forward, steady as thunder about to crack, and said the one line that made half the town flinch. She doesn't sleep out there anymore. She stays in the house now. You could feel it, silence turning into judgment, truth tramping in with boots on, daring anyone to shove it back out. But let me rewind. A few days before the blaze, the stagecoach crawled in late, wheels groaning like they carried more than freight. No one waited. No one does much in Jericho anymore. Then she climbed down, barefoot, sunbitten, dress torn and red with dust. One strap hung loose, showing a bruise the color of dark wine. Knees scraped, arms scratched like claws had been there. She didn't ask for help, didn't glance up, just pressed her palm against the wheel like it was the only thing keeping her upright. That was June Whitlow, once the preacher's girl, now a ghost wearing skin. Most folks turned their heads. Not Elias. From the forge, with long shadows at his feet, he watched. Didn't blink. Didn't budge. Sometimes a man doesn't need the whole story to know wrong's been done. Before June slipped into the doctor's place, she said a line that cut deeper than any match. Use me, break me, just move me. They'll tell you it was just a barn fire. I swear something worse burned that night. Elias didn't go knocking that day. He didn't ask. But 3 nights later, he left a warm loaf on the windowsill. No note. No noise. Bread wrapped in an old rag. Tucked inside, small as a secret, a bruised peach from the tree behind a shop. Not much, but more than anyone else offered. He turned to go, quiet, always quiet, when her voice caught him. Not loud, not frightened, just worn down. You gonna take your turn? He froze. Isn't that why you brought it? She never opened the window. Never raised her tone. Said it like she'd said it too many times to men who never brought bread. He left without a word. Next morning, a red ribbon lay on his step. Not new or pretty. Hers. After that, at dusk, she sat on the stoop. Didn't say much. Didn't look up right away. Elias would give one small nod as he walked between forge and well. She'd sit there like silence was the safest thing she owned. One evening, after he handed her a tin of water, she asked, "Why don't you ask what happened?" He kept the hammer moving. "Would you like to tell me?" She said nothing. Didn't have to. Sometimes not telling is the only way to stay on your feet. That night another ribbon hung at the well, faded red, the kind little girls wore when they still believed in birthdays. They weren't friends. Not yet. But in the quiet between them, something remembered who she used to be. By the 4th evening, June sat farther from the porch, neither hiding nor inviting, just choosing her own ground. Close enough to hear the iron ring, far enough that nobody could claim her. She wasn't healed, not even close, but she kept showing up. Sometimes that's all surviving is. Tess Raymond strutted past, heels clicking, dress pulled tighter than the truth. She slowed and let her words sour the air. Girls like that shouldn't be where decent folks pass. Ain't a shred of dignity left in her bones. From the forge, Elias heard. Didn't lift his head, but the hammer fell a little harder. The next morning was worse. 3 local boys, barely men, mostly spit and cheap beer, hung by the fence near June. Not loud at first. Too much laughing. Leaning in. One tossed an apple core, thumped by her bare foot. June didn't move. The second muttered about broken toys being easy to borrow. The third stumbled, fingers brushing her hem like it was a joke. That's when Elias rounded the corner. No yell. No threat. Just a long, level stare from a man who'd been quiet too long and remembered he'd once chased off wolves. They didn't run, but they didn't strut away either. You'd think that'd be the end. It wasn't. Something softer waited. The kind that lingers longer than a bruise. That night June wasn't on the stoop. On the side post, another ribbon, this one with a small coin tucked in the knot. Maybe a thanks. Maybe a promise. He didn't untie it. He stood there, palm on the wood, long after the light quit. Not every story burns in gunpowder. Sometimes it smolders in a look when nobody else notices the spark. If you're still here, you're in it now. This tale isn't finished. Not close. If you want to see what happens when a quiet man stops looking away, hit subscribe. We'll ride it out together. Sunday came hotter than the devil's breath. June wore the same torn dress. Not for show, it's all she owned. She walked toward the general store, 10 steps from the porch, far enough for trouble to smell it. Jack Puller was waiting, one boot on the rail, chewing something that didn't need chewing. He saw her and grinned slow. "Miss Clay," he drawled, tipping a fake hat. June kept moving. No answer. No pause. He moved faster, grabbed her arm, yanked her half off her feet. "Why hurry, darling? Thought you liked attention." The slap cracked first. Not hers, his. Backhanded across her face. June hit the dirt. Dust leapt up. People gasped. No one helped. Not until Elias left the blacksmiths, didn't walk, marched, each step scorching the ground. No speeches. No warning. He hit him. One clean shot to the jaw. Jack dropped. Elias didn't stop. He yanked him up by the shirt, slammed him to the post, and whispered low as a prayer, "Touch her again. I'll bury your hand behind the barn." Jack's lip bled. No jokes left. He limped off without a word. June said nothing that evening. But on the forge table lay her old ribbon, one end singed, tied neat as a bow. Elias slid it into his back pocket. After that, folks talked again. Not about what June had been through, but about the smith who stood like it was the only thing that still made sense. The next day, June didn't come out. No ribbons, no peaches, no silent porch. Elias didn't knock. At sundown, when the iron cooled, he left a plate by her door, 2 slices of cornbread, a boiled egg, and a folded napkin with her name. Just June. In the morning, the plate was gone. In its place, a single white button. Not new. Not fancy. Elias smiled when he found it. That's how mending starts, not fireworks, buttons and breakfast. That evening she took the steps again, closer than before. He sat beside her, quiet as a pew. Just before the light slipped, she leaned her head on his shoulder. Not heavy, not desperate, just there. He didn't move, only laid his hand over hers. For the first time since she stepped off that coach, June closed her eyes without a flinch. There's power in a quiet man who shows up. There's something holy in a woman who chooses to stay. Not every tale needs a wedding or a ring-kissed embrace. Sometimes it needs a porch, 2 tired boots, and a slice of peace no one else would give. They didn't shout. They didn't chase. They stood and watched the barn blaze, the knife-cut name burning bright, June, like a brand that refused to fade. Smoke coiled up, choking more than lungs, and no one dared speak the truth out loud because Jericho Creek doesn't drag monsters into the open. It covers them with dirt or fire. But Elias Boone broke the rule. He stepped into the road and said, "She's not sleeping in that barn again. She's in the house now." That was the moment calm changed to reckoning. The day the stage came, it rattled and late, groaning like it knew too much. She climbed down barefoot, shoulders raw, dress torn, dust ground into every seam. Her bruises told their own story. Her eyes didn't ask for a thing. June Whitlow, once a preacher's pride, now a shadow trying to stay upright. Most folks folded into themselves. Elias watched from a forge, no questions, just a certainty that something wrong had been done. She slipped into the doctor's place and left a sentence behind like a hot brand. "Use me, break me, just move me." People said the barn burning was the worst of it. They were wrong. Elias didn't show up with flowers or gossip. He left bread, a bruised peach, then took 2 steps and heard her say, low and worn, "You taking your turn?" He carried that hurt home without a word. Next dawn, a ribbon lay by his door. Evenings, June claimed the stoop. Elias nodded, past the well, let the hammer talk for him. "Why don't you ask me what happened?" she asked. "Would you want to tell it?" he said. Silence was her answer. She tied a faded ribbon at the well, the kind children wear when they still think wishes work. She shifted her seat further from the porch, choosing space and sightlines. Surviving is still showing up when you've got nothing left to show. Tess hissed poison in passing. The hammer fell harder. 3 boys tested the fence. Elias stepped through the quiet like a wolf remembered. They lost their grins and found their feet. That night a ribbon hung with a coin tucked tight. He didn't take it. He kept the post warm with his palm and let the light fail. Sunday made the town crackle. Jack Puller grabbed June and got himself put against a post with the promise of a buried hand. The ribbon on the forge, singed and tied, rode in Elias's pocket from then on. The next day there was only a plate, a name on a napkin, and a white button in return. That evening shoulders met. Hands rested. Her eyes closed. Peace came small, which is the only size it knows. And then the barn. Folks watched it burn, because that's what they do. Watch, whisper, measure who moves and who doesn't. The knife lines in the wood flared, and Elias said the words that moved June from a shadow to someone under his roof. He didn't argue with town law. He made his own. The talk changed from what she was to who stood. After the smoke, June didn't fade. She came back to the steps. Elias split wood, kept iron singing, and made a habit of leaving simple plates and getting small tokens in return, buttons, a ribbon, a peach pit, with a heart scratched in the shell. These weren't gifts. They were stitches. The town kept its distance. A few walked by slower. Some stared at their boots. No one forgot the promise Elias made to Jack Puller. Quiet men don't say much twice. One afternoon, June touched the porch post and said, "This one still stands." Elias tapped the grain with his knuckles. "So do you." She looked at his hand, at the ribbon end blackened by flame, and nodded. That night, stars stood still. Wind pressed warm against the eaves. Somewhere a dog barked and decided it wasn't worth it. And 2 people who had been turned into ash by different fires sat in the same glow and didn't feel alone. You want a happy ending? The West doesn't hand them out like candy. It gives you choices: cover your eyes or keep them open. Elias chose open. June chose to sit where the world could see her and did not break. Healing isn't clean. It spits sparks. It smells like smoke and iron and bread crust. It shows up as a white button and a name on a napkin. It sounds like a hammer that falls steady, then softer. If you've ever carried more than you could explain, you already know. So here's the question worth more than any whisper in Jericho Creek. What brings a broken soul back to itself? Justice? Kindness? Or someone who refuses to look away when it hurts? If this story lit something in you, if you've met an Elias or had to be a June, hit like. Subscribe if you want more plain, honest tales that don't quit when it gets hard. And tell me in the comments, when the fire starts and the name burns bright, do you step forward or do you turn your head?